Busy today with Senator James Lankford. Of course, the big news right now, the government shutdown. So, kind of give us a status update. Have we got an end in sight, possibly, Senator?
We have a possible end in sight. How about that? Nothing is done until it's done. But we do have some additional Democrats that have come on board just in the last 24 hours and said, okay, we're willing to be able to call this done. The frustrating thing is we think they were trying to hold out until after the elections in New York City because the shutdown was really all about energizing their base that were fighting Trump and getting everyone fired up. They did. They got everyone fired up. They had a huge turnout in all their elections. Mondami won New York City. And so apparently now they're willing to be able to come to the table and say, okay, let's reopen the government, which I have to tell you is really, really painful. If the goal of this whole thing apparently was to fire up their base for the New York City elections, I can't imagine what all the SNAP recipients are feeling and the folks from Head Start and the federal workers that they've not been paid, not get access to benefits so they could fire up the base in New York City. But that apparently is where we are. So in the next 24 hours, we think we're going to have a breakthrough at this point just to be able to reopen the government current year levels. But we've also, in the last 5 weeks, been able to negotiate 3 of the full appropriation bills, including the ag appropriation bill, to be able to get that one passed with full year funding on it. So that's really important for us to be able to add it in. So it'd be ag, it'd be what's called legislative branch, which is basic operations around here, which is really small. And then the other one is Milcon VA. Sorry, I had a little brain lapse there for a moment dealing with our military construction veterans benefits. We're hoping to get full year funding for those 3, everything else partial funding.
Well, I know that right now what a lot of people are hearing is this is on the Republicans. Why can't you reach across the aisle? Why can't you, make something happen? Can you kind of give everybody just in layman's terms how this thing works?
Yeah, when we get to a moment like this and 2 sides can't agree, we will typically do what's called a continuing resolution. That is, we keep funding the government at the same year level where we are. Nothing changes on it. Just keep going and keep negotiating. That's what's happened the last 13 times we've been at a moment like this, is to say we're stuck. We've got some more things to negotiate. Let's just keep things open and keep negotiating, including, by the way, every single time we got to this moment in the Biden administration, we just voted to keep things going and keep negotiating. This time, Democrats said, no, they're mad at Trump. No, they want to show their protests and their resistance to President Trump. So they would not agree to just a continuing resolution, just clean, just keep it open, just nonpartisan peace on it. They would not agree to that. They wanted to show their resistance to President Trump. So it was very frustrating because we were doing literally exactly what has been done the last 13 times, whether Democrats have been in control or whether Republicans have been in control. That's been the thing that we've done to be able to keep things going. They just determined, no, they're not going to do it. The second thing was really hard on this. Typically, when you get in a negotiation like this, one side's got one piece of paper, another side's got another piece of paper, and you're fighting about what's on that paper, trying to be able to figure out how to merge the two and resolve it. We didn't have that this time. Republicans said, let's just open the government at current year funding levels. And Democrats said, no, I want a government shutdown to show our resistance to Trump. Well, I don't have a piece of paper to negotiate with at that point. So we're stuck until they decide they have stopped their protest work to be able to go and to be able to then move forward. So apparently at least a few of them are ready to stop their protest and will move to just reopen the government and do what we typically do, open the government and then keep negotiating the next thing.
Well, I know you met with the president, and he had actually suggested just getting rid of the filibuster and stopping all of this, but you said no, no.
No. The filibuster rule is there to be able to force both sides to be able to talk to each other in hard things. If you don't have the filibuster rule, then one side can just ignore the other side. That's what happens in the House of Representatives. But the Senate is the only place in our government where both sides have to be grown-ups, sit down and actually talk to each other and to be able to work out their differences. That's actually good for the country long term. That's what we have to do at church. That's what we have to do in our work. That's what we have to do in our neighborhoods. When you find a disagreement with somebody, you got to sit down and figure out a way to work it out. That's what happens in the Senate. So the 60-vote rule, though frustrating and it does slow things down, it is better about actually fixing things long term when both sides have to come to the table and find some kind of resolution that's good for the country. So no, I believe we should keep that. I also know what Joe Biden would have done if he didn't have any filibuster rule at all, because Democrats just 4 years ago had control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. If there was no filibuster rule at that time, I know what he would have done. He'd have made Washington, D.C. a state. He'd have packed the court. He already talked about trying to be able to add 5 more members of the Supreme Court. He'd added new Democrat senators from Washington, D.C. He'd have made abortion required in every single state. He would have changed right to work laws in every single state. I mean, he was very outspoken. None of those things occurred because we had this rule where both sides had to agree in the Senate before something like that could move. So it is important, both offense and defense, that we actually keep a place in government where both sides have to talk.
Well, you touched on this just a little bit. We've been able to get a little bit of relief out for our farmers, but of course we need so much more. So what else are you kind of hearing around this topic?
Yeah, it's a big deal that we were able to move half of the farm bill with the reference prices and all those things in July. So that's significant, but it really doesn't kick in and have full effect really till next summer to fall. For most folks, they're not going to feel a lot of that. So yes, it's in motion, but if you're not experiencing it right now, you don't feel it yet, but you will by next year on all the reference price issues right now. A lot of conversation about Argentine beef. In fact, it was part of our dialogue with the president yesterday when we had breakfast together. The president's really focused on how he can bring beef prices down. We've been very clear there's a way to do that. It's a deal on the packers side of things, not on the farmers and ranchers. That's not the place to be able to try to control prices on it. And bringing in Argentine lower quality beef is not going to really satisfy Americans. Americans are used to good quality American beef. That's what they're looking for. And so we're working with the president. He's focused on how to reduce beef prices. We're focused on as well how we can actually make sure we're taking care of American farmers and ranchers in the process.
Well, talk a little bit about, you've got a proposal to stop these shutdowns where this doesn't happen anymore. So tell us a little bit about that and how we can get it across the finish line.
Yeah, government shutdowns are dumb. They hurt the country internationally. They hurt people that work for the federal government, and all those families. All of these are just, everyone seems to poke on federal workers like they're bureaucrats in the middle of the machine. Many of them I've met, they're just Americans that want to be able to serve their country. To them, they didn't serve in the military, but they can serve their country in one of these agencies and to be able to take care of their neighbors. So these are folks that work for USDA, they work for HUD, they work for FAA. They've got different ways to be able to serve. They work National Weather Service. They found ways to be able to serve their nation, and this is how they're doing it. So for me, I'd like to end government shutdowns entirely. So it's a pretty simple idea. You actually, when you get to another moment where we're approaching a government shutdown, automatically what's called a continuing resolution kicks in, keeps funding the government at current year levels, but the House and the Senate both have to be in session 7 days a week, and we can only work on appropriation bills until it's done. Right now, the House is not even here. The Senate's in session, but for the last 5 weeks, the House hadn't been here. If my bill would have passed, both the House and the Senate would have had to have been here 7 days a week to be able to get this done. I had this vote last session. We had 57 votes for it in the Senate. I need 60 to pass it. So we had a majority of the body, but I didn't have the magic number of 60 to be able to move it. So we're going to continue to be able to work until we get those final few votes that are needed so we can take this issue of government shutdowns off the table forever.
And finally, you know, everybody's arguing about the healthcare policy. The affordable healthcare plan isn't great, but what are going to be some other options? I know everybody's wanting something to just be cheaper around everything.
Yeah, it is actually. Obamacare, the price continues to go up and up and up and up, and Democrats continue to look for new ways to add more tax subsidies on top of it because the price of it's rising so fast. Part of this fight that we're having right now is Democrats are saying they want a new additional subsidy on top of Obamacare so they can prevent that group of people from their insurance rates going up. Now, right now, that it's about 19 million people. That group of people are being subsidized. Around 95% of their healthcare subsidy, their healthcare premium is being subsidized by taxpayers. 95%. They want to take that to 100% or increase it to 99% on it. Like the federal taxpayer is already covering 90 to 95% of this. Let's talk about everybody else, and not just that 19 million people. Let's talk about everybody's premium. We've been very focused to say we're ready to talk about health care issues, but I don't want to just talk about 19 million people. I want to talk about everybody in the country and their health care premiums. What can we do to be able to bring the rates down? That's providing more options. Obamacare limited the options for insurance that it only provided the most expensive plans because the people in D.C. at the time determined, no, everybody needs this highest level plan. Well, there's a lot of folks that are like, no, I don't. I set aside some money from my health care in other ways. I want a cheaper premium on it. They're not allowed to do that right now. So we want to be able to allow more options to be able to be out there for cheaper premiums. We want to give people more choice to be able to choose what they want to be able to do. There are lots of ways to be able to do this. Like, for instance, people talk about high risk pools. If you have cancer and you have another one of these rare diseases that's out there, your insurance expenses is incredibly high, but the payments that go to that to make sure they're taking care of you also drives up their rates for everybody else. So what if we had the people with the highest insurance costs and the highest healthcare costs, put them in a separate pool with good insurance to be able to take care of them, but it didn't drive up the rates for everybody else as well? It's a way to be able to balance it out so we have lower rates for the vast majority of Americans, but we're really getting the high healthcare costs and needs to the folks that need it the most, and maybe subsidize that group of folks rather than try to subsidize everybody and have much higher premiums on it. So there are ways to do this that we've talked about. We hope that at the end of this, Democrats are willing to be able to actually come to the table and say, let's not just talk about Obamacare, let's talk about everybody's healthcare costs and figure out a way for this to come down.
Anything you'd like Oklahoma producers to know?
Keep praying for the nation. Don't give up on us. God's still God. We've still got work to get done. And so we're going to continue to be able to work until we get the government back open. But we do have a lot of issues there. The farm bill that was scheduled to be taken up this fall, now with this shutdown, is now pushing that into spring to get the second half of the farm bill done. But we're going to continue to be able to do the work to be able to open up trade options, to be able to have consistent trade, to focus on American products, to be able to get out. And we're going to continue to be able to find new ways to be able to serve the country like you do every single day.
All right. Thank you, Senator. We appreciate you.
Thanks.